Guys, we are back in open session. This is actually the only open session that we have for today. The item that we're currently on is Conservation Committee docking policy. So we're basically going to be having a conversation regarding the policies surrounding docking at the various different access sites that we have. So Ryan, Jack, Danny, whichever one would like to get us started, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start us off. I have on the screen here the draft policy and procedures. The Conservation Committee at their last meeting approved this to come to the board for a workshop. And if you guys like this language, we'll move it towards upcoming board meeting to adopt. So the context behind this is we have multiple different properties that the tribe owns that we can moor our boats, dock our boats for. Mostly this is for commercial. We geared this towards commercial fishing. Doesn't mean it can't also be used later for subsistence fishing, but the task of the Conservation Committee was trying to put together a policy to help these commercial captains figure out how we would divvy up the sometimes limited access to the sites we own. And also, you'll see as we get further down the policy, if we have another tribe's fisher, another Cora tribe who their fisher wants to dock on at our properties and we're not using it for one of our commercial fishers, there's a path where they can request a permit. Other sister tribes have allowed some of our commercial fishers to dock at their sites. We have in the past also allowed them, but we didn't have like an official policy, and this is our attempt at getting one. So here's the background, the permit conditions. So this is going to be more of a global policy. If we adopt this, we'll have to do specific procedures for each site that we own because all of them have different capacities and different ways we might be able to dock or moor our boats. And the factors, the considerations that are going to be used are depending on the site, whether it should be limited to certain dates, how many boats can fit on that site, and how to define active fishing for continued use of the permit, which you'll see later down. We have a definition for if someone has a permit to access the site and they don't meet the minimum threshold for active fishing, then they're at risk of losing that docking permit for someone who will be actively fishing. Give me 1 second, guys, sorry. My screen share's acting weird.
Did you send us that?
It should be in your packets, yes.
At the back of our agenda.
Like it might be the very last attachment, yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, number 3, issuing use permits. The use permits for specific sites will be issued with a preference to Sioux tribe fishers that will be able to demonstrate a historical use or historical fishing at or around that docking site. If there are more interested fishers than there are available dock slips or spaces at that site, then Sioux tribe law enforcement is the agency empowered to use the following procedures to select a Sioux tribe fisher. Starting with A, application. The Sioux tribe will solicit applications from the tribal fishers that are interested in fishing out of specific locations. This solicitation will occur in March of each year. If there are more applicants than available spaces, Sioux tribe will select from the pool of applicants pursuant to the selection process enumerated in section C. B, ownership, captain, license priority. Applicants for a docking permit must prove ownership of the vessel being permitted. Vessels operated by holders of a captain license will receive preference over vessels operated by authorized co-captains under applicable law. We had a co-captain discussion a while ago at one of our recent workshops, and while we don't do co-captains as we used to, it's still in our code, and there are certain instances where you can get a co-captain. So this is to cover that provision of code, even though it's rare and doesn't happen a lot. Sometimes you will have a situation where we do have an authorized co-captain operating a vessel. So we want to make sure they were covered by the policy. C, selection procedures. If there are more applicants than spaces available, then preference will be given to applicants that have a history of fishing in that given area. Preference will be given based on a calculation of the average number of days the applicant was actively fishing for the preceding 5 fishing seasons. Fishers showing the most days fished will get higher preference. This preference shall stay in effect as long as the selected fisher meets the definition of actively fishing and continues to fish from the designated sites.
Mike
Yes.
has a question.
What was the determining factor for 5 fishing seasons? That seems like we're going quite a few years back. Is it just random number 5 is what you're?
No, there was, I can't remember the different numbers now offhand that got put on the table. Clarence maybe can remember, but the goal was, since we're giving a preference to like a historical fishing in the area, after multiple discussions and multiple kind of workshops at the conservation committee level, 5 was deemed the number of fishing seasons that seemed appropriate to show that you have that you do historically fish in this area. And I'm sorry, Mike, I can't remember the other
no worries,
the other
that's fine.
years that were thrown out there.
So, based on what you described, though, when you're saying preceding 5 fishing seasons, are we going to say in that area? Because if you have someone that's got 5 years of fishing in a different area, really successful, and they apply, is that language suffice, or do you want in that area in here? Because someone who has got 5 years of fishing in a different area might beat out somebody who's been fishing that. So if it's historical in that area, I think it should, and there should be language that says that, because then you could have someone that has 5 years fishing experience somewhere else that could outbeat somebody in that. And if your goal is historical, then I think location would need to be in there, I think. Am I reading that wrong?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think the intent is to show over those 5 seasons
In
how
that
much
area.
you're fishing in that area.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay. I don't know what language you want to use, but I do think that probably should be put in there. And I'll yield.
Okay, anyone else?
I'll put in a given area.
Okay, Clarence, would you like to add something?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say the reason it was 5 fishing seasons is there was discussion that a fisher may have been using one of these spots for 3 years straight and then, or 4 years straight, and then maybe have moved out like last year or a couple years ago and now wants to come back. And it showed, that's where the 5 years came up, and it was for that area, that specific area. So basically if he moved out last year, he would still want to show that historically that he was there, a lot. So that's where that came from.
Okay, thanks, Clarence. We can keep going.
Yep.
Little double I here. If there are fewer applicants than spaces available, so if a lot of spaces available and not very many people needing them, then they'll just be issued on a first come, first served basis, which is how we historically have done it. We just didn't reduce it to a writing anywhere. If after little triple I here, if after issuing a use permit to all interested tribal fishers, there are still spaces available, they may be issued to fishers from other Cora tribes with permission of the Conservation Committee as follows. 1, other tribal fishers must request the application and apply requesting the specific access. 2, the Conservation Committee will review each application and issue use permits on a first come, first served basis. 3, if a use permit is issued to another Cora tribe fisher and a Sioux tribe fisher later requests access, the other Cora fisher will be given 7-day notice to relinquish the use permit, and it will be issued to the Sioux tribe fisher. Notice may be extended in extenuating circumstances if the fisher is unable to pull their operation out in the 7-day time span. So number 3 was something the Conservation Committee wanted in to keep the thread of prioritizing our own tribal fishers first and foremost. So if we have some other, maybe we have a Little River or another tribal member, they're fishing at out of a specific site, but now we have one of our commercial fishers who needs access to that for their own operation. The intent was to give them a preference, but still give reasonable notice for the other fisher to be able to get their operation out. All right. D, other stipulations. So here we have our definition for active fishing requirement. Do we have the definition here? The definition for active fishing is,
I just read it.
It's in there, Ryan, under number 2, suggestion.
Yep, you see that on the front page.
Right, went past
Yeah.
it, right?
sorry guys, I glossed over that in the beginning because I thought that it's supposed to move down lower to the bottom, but the active fishing definition here on the screen, number 2, C, little I. Active fishing is considered to be fishing daily or at least once every 2 weeks, weather permitting, and have been observed leaving the specific site designated on their use permit and or unloading fish at said site. And it's not a suggestion, this is the definition the committee is recommending. Sorry, I glossed over that earlier. Are there any questions on that definition? All right. Other stipulation, active fishing requirement, permit holders must meet the definition that I just read of active fishing. Failure to do so will be deemed a violation of the use permit and be cause for possible revocation of the permit for the remainder of the calendar year. Little double I, absent from site. If a permittee is absent from a site for more than 2 weeks, the use permit will be forfeited and thereby available to be issued to another fisher for the remainder of the calendar year. If there are no other interested fishers for that permit, the use permit may be returned to the original fisher as originally authorized. So if you're absent from the site, you will forfeit that use permit. And so if someone is absent for that 2-week span, and then they forfeit it another fisher, I want to move into the access site, then it's up for grabs and I can get it. But if no one ends up needing or wanting the access, even though the other fisher previously forfeited it, if they're the only person that wants it, we'll give it back to them. Is basically what that is saying.
Mike?
I missed the last meeting, so that's on me. So, but who's monitoring that then? If someone just says, hey, they haven't been there for 2 weeks, they go, oh, okay, then we'll remove it. Like who's what
Yeah.
mechanism is being played out, I guess, to say, okay, that person hasn't been there because of X or Y, and then so just law enforcement? Is it?
It would be law enforcement, probably in conjunction with the natural resources, based on both actual on-site observations and the more or less almost real-time fishing reporting
Okay.
that we have. We should have the data to be able to see if someone is in the area fishing and or using that site.
So we have all the mechanisms in place to verify that.
Between those two agencies, yeah.
We don't need to refer to that at all on here, or we're good with that?
No, let's refer to it.
I'll be quiet now.
No, this is why I workshop it, right? Just because Clarence knows we had this floating around the conservation committee for months, and we wanted it years. We wanted it off their table and onto yours so we could further refine it. So no, these are good questions. So, if a permittee is absent from a site for more than 2 weeks, as determined through data gathered by Sioux Tribe law enforcement and natural resources.
As it relates to natural resources, though, would that be on like an as-requested basis, or are you asking our fisheries program to be actively monitoring all of these license holders? Because we really won't be able to do this for the other tribes especially, right?
Yeah, it would be, I imagine this would be fleshed out more in maybe a procedure document that accompanies this policy. But the law enforcement would have to flag it to NRD. And then they'd have to see if their data also confirms that that fisher has not been fishing or is absent from that area. That's a good question, Danny. I don't know.
I'm just wondering about time and resources.
Yeah, and then when you guys are done, I have Kim. She has a question or comment.
Go ahead, Kim. I'm typing. I'm just flagging this. I'm just going to put a comment here that we may need to flesh out this process more
Right,
before we
'cause
have you vote on it.
I was thinking what Danny was saying about, is it gonna be resources of ours, or is it just when we're out there doing something, we notice that boat hasn't been there, in a couple weeks, but it could be gone while yous are there. I mean, is it something you want them to go and check every week or every?
Yeah, and I think that might be impossible, but Jack, how often are our crews out at the sites that we own, realistically?
Not,
Once a year?
yeah, it depends. But
Yeah.
once
Not
a
as
year
much
is-
as we
Yeah,
should.
so I'm thinking
Yeah.
yous should be out of the equation, and who did you put in there? Fish reports and law enforcement were the other two?
It was law enforcement and NRD. So law enforcement is going to be the agency for us that has the most eyes on all. And it's not even, I mean, it's more than once a year, but it's not like consistently 24/7. We only have so
Right.
many conservation officers, but they would be the agency that'd be the most capable of having consistent observation of these access sites.
Cameras are cheap. You could put cameras out at them.
Yeah.
Okay, Clarence?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna mention that, it could start with law enforcement, and then they could, contact Jack to see if there's any catch reports from that fisher for that area. I mean, because it is 2 weeks that they have to report their catch. So it's kind of real time. I mean, so you could kind of coordinate that way, but I don't think that, obviously, it wouldn't make sense for, Jack to have to monitor these, these sites and these permits at these sites. So, and I mean, I don't know if there's gonna be a whole lot of, a bum rush to get somebody, to have, the sites are there now and they're not really, I mean, Epofet's being used a little bit, but I'm not so sure about Grand Marais and I believe Fairport's the other one, but, so, anyway. Over.
Okay, thank you, Clarence. We keep going, Ryan.
Right, I'm just writing here, if Sault Ste law enforcement observes that a permittee may be absent as described above, they will confer with natural resources. Natural resources depart, is it division? Division. And the, Cora catch reports. Those will be the two best mechanisms to determine that. How's that sound? Does that help address some of your question, Danny?
I think so. I just didn't, we are not regular, like Grand Marais or Fairport, even some of our closer ones. I know we're not visiting often and we're already pretty strapped for assessment time. And then if we do issue these to other Cora tribes, will Cora work with us on their catch reports if this becomes an issue?
Yeah, I imagine. I don't foresee that being an
Okay.
issue. We wouldn't be going to the individual tribes. We'd just be going to the Cora Fisher app, right? And we could work with Cora, yeah, to find that. All right, exchange of permits. Fishers may temporarily transfer their permit to another fisher who meets the criteria in these procedures for a period of not to exceed 3 months. All transfers must be presented to the Conservation Committee for approval. So if I have access to a site, but I'm not going to use it for time, but I don't want to be dinged for being absent. This is one situation the Conservation Committee discussed. If there's another fisher who wants to also temporarily use that area for a short period of time, then I can, with the permission of the Conservation Committee, transfer my access to that other fisher for the up to 3 months, and then when I'm ready to go back and fishing in the area, then we transfer it back. Clarence will have to elucidate on more maybe his memory of why that got put in there, but that was the type of scenario that we're discussing at the conservation level. So if I, for some reason, I'm gonna be absent, I don't wanna lose that access. I just wanna transfer it to another fisher so I can get it back later instead of being just dinged for being absent. I believe was mostly the intent of that part.
Okay, Mike?
Thank you, Mike.
So under that scenario, though, someone who's got the 5-year seasons can get the permit. They could knowingly maybe know that they're not gonna be fishing it, but they have the history, they could get it, and say there's 2 fishers that are coming into that territory, but they know one's better than the other, but they don't want the competition and lose their history. They could give their permit to somebody else for the next 3 months then. So we're bypassing the whole selection process. There's a loophole. So someone with history could get the permit easier than anybody else and then pass it off, and they could do that for a couple of years, because we're going five seasons back. So I guess just what, either the justification there, or maybe that's an unintended consequence of it. I just want to make sure that we're not leaving the door open to that scenario.
You go ahead, Clarence, and I'll follow you up.
Oh, okay. I keep raising and lowering my hand here. Well, there was discussion over this, so there was a couple different scenarios. If somebody had to step away for National Guard duty, or if they had a family emergency or an illness, something like that, where they had to step away from fishing for a period of time, that they would open the permit up to somebody else if they wanted it. That's kind of the discussion that was behind this language.
Just to follow up on that, if what it said something like that, due to extenuating circumstances approved by the Conservation Committee, I would be more okay with that than the language written here. Because the language written here doesn't say that. And thank you for that clarification, Clarence, but I think it should say, due to special circumstances approved by the Conservation Committee, for we're not just doing it and having a back door, it's actually, no, there's a reason why they're not fishing it. I feel way more comfortable with that explanation. Yield.
I would agree with that, Mike.
What about this? If due to emergent or extenuating circumstances, a Sioux Tribe fisher cannot fish out of their approved access site, that fisher may temporarily, et cetera, et cetera. And it has to be approved by the Conservation Committee, so they'll look at it, and they'll have to, maybe we'll have to create a form or something, but they'll have to justify, like they do with like a medical need co-captain right now, they have to show that there's an actual need for that they're going to National Guard duty, or they just had surgery on or something, right? So that this way you have both on the front end, they need to show some justification, and on the back end, the Conservation Committee has to look at and approve them first. All right. Good. Properties that can be used for mooring and docking fishing vessels are authorized to use site-specific procedures in line with this policy to ensure that each site is operating under the most efficient and necessary procedures. This is kind of a catch-all language we put in because we didn't believe we could create an overarching policy that would be able to hit every single need of every single access site. So as long as this global policy, if it gets adopted, is followed, each site can do site-specific procedures, whatever they might be. I'm not intimately familiar with all of our sites and what those might look like, but if the need arises where maybe there's a site for some reason, maybe we're doing construction on a site that year, right? So we know that this date, this time and date, that they can't access this site. Doesn't affect all the other sites, but they can put it into like a temporary procedure, and that's, or a permanent procedure if there's something that we know is specific to this area, that we need this type of restriction. As long as it's not in violation of the overall policy, they can have we have the ability to do site-specific procedures as needed. All right. Permit holders shall comply with any inspections or environmental sample collection requested by Sioux Tribe law enforcement or the Sioux Tribe NRD, including in coordination with other agencies, and may require any natural resource to be subject to reasonable and appropriate biological assessment. This was added to cover multiple concerns. One is, of course, environmental concerns. If we have something at a boat, maybe actively harming the natural resources around it. We also have in our code right now that if a conservation officer is going to board your vessel for a safety check or otherwise, it is actually a violation of our law to not allow them on your boat. And we've had recent issues where we felt like if we had something to go along with the code that might give us a little bit more teeth, something that puts everyone on notice. If you get this access site permit, you're also subjecting yourselves to these types of reasonable searches if there is a need determined by law enforcement or natural resources. Maybe it's an oil spill, maybe it's you crash your boat on the rocks or something. I don't know. Maybe it's a safety check that you want to make sure that you have all your safety equipment. Whatever the case may be, even though it is in our code that you are not supposed to, as an operator of your vessel, not allow a law enforcement or conservation officer onto your boat. We do run into that where people do refuse. And we wanted people who get these permits to be put on notice that they have to allow those searches. Good there. All right, the last one. This was added to encapsulate and capture the intent of recent resolutions that the board has adopted over the past couple of years with regards to protecting our natural resources. Permit holders shall conduct all activities at the permitted site in a manner that prevents harm to lands, waters, wetlands, and natural resources in alignment with tribal laws. Permittee shall comply with all applicable environmental regulations. Any pollution, spill, unauthorized discharge, improper disposal of waste, or other environmental damage caused by the permittee or the permitted vessel shall constitute a violation of the permit and may result in revocation of docking privileges and other appropriate enforcement action. This is another kind of catch-all, putting people on notice if they get these. And they will, if they get access, we adopt this and they get an access permit, they'll also have a little thing that they get, putting them on notice of all the rules and regulations that they have to abide by. But this is to help us have a little better enforcement mechanism to help maybe prevent, but also maybe also enforce our laws when necessarily if we have some kind of environmental accident or something at one of our access sites or an access site that we use. So, does that make sense? That's it. If and when this goes to a vote to the board, we'll get to work on, if this policy is approved, then we'll figure out what site-specific procedures, what forms we need to implement it, right? The application is one of them. Whatever little form notice that we need to get out when someone applies and gets one of these access permits, they'll be put on notice that they have to comply by all these rules. If there's site-specific rules, all that stuff. That's all part of implementation. Not all of that has been developed yet, but if this policy does get put in place, the applications are supposed to go out in March. And so we'll have time, if we adopt this year, to get ready to implement for the applications for next March.
Okay, I appreciate it, Ryan. Any last minute questions, comments? Yeah, much appreciated. Let's move on to the next item, which is an update from the legal department. This item is closed. Let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll jump into that.